Hello, my name is Morgan Berry, and I would like to tell you about a very traditional legacy in my family. My great grandmother is 92 years old, and her name is Wilma Bridges. Out of all of these years, everyone has been dying over her strawberry cake. She has tried it. Well, first she kept it a secret out of all of these years, and then she decided that she wanted our family to be able to make the cake when she passed on. So she tried teaching it to a fairly large number of people, and no one could succeed. My mother even tried it one time, and our dog would not even eat it. I mean, it was awful. So, one day last summer, when I was keeping her, she decided that she would try to get me to make the strawberry cake. I was so excited because I'd always wanted to learn how to make it, and I love to cook. When we started cooking, first we needed to get the ingredients. For the cake, you will need a yellow cake mix from Duncan Hines, 2 packs of strawberry jello, 1 8-ounce frozen container of strawberries. First, you will need to follow the directions based on the yellow cake mix how you would make any other cake, which calls for, it tells you the eggs and the water and so on. You need to mix the cake mix. Well, once you start following the directions to make the yellow cake mix, once you mix the batter up with your whisk or whatever you may use, then you will empty your 2 packs of jello into the mix and whisk it up as well. Then you will, after thawing your strawberries out, you will need to put them in your cake mix as well. And I always put mine in a food processor to kind of grind them up, because if you don't, one of my first times of making it, the strawberries stayed really big and they kind of stuck to the bottom of the pan and it didn't work out so well. So I always grind mine up. After getting the mix completely done, then you will need to separate the mix into 3 pans. And I always grease mine with Crisco and sprinkle flour over them to ensure that it does not stick. So after separating them, then I will put them into the oven until they are brown set the oven to about 375, and I will let them bake them. To always know when they are done, I always stick a toothpick in it to see if it is brown or not, or to see if it's done or not, and then you can always kind of check the top to see if it's brown. But toothpick always works the best way to me. After baking your cake, I always do my icing next. For the icing, you will need a stick of butter, 3/4 cup of pet milk, and 2 cups of sugar. First, you need to melt your stick of butter in a pan, or I use a boiler. Then, once it starts melting, then you will need to add your 2 cups of sugar and 3/4 cup of milk. The icing is one of the most hardest things to make, and like everyone in my family has been able to make the cake, but not the icing. So, it is called a sugar icing that is homemade. Once you get all the ingredients into the pan, you need to let them come to a boil. And you have to be very careful when making this icing, because it will very quickly turn to sugar if you do not watch it. But every time I make the icing, it always has a different look and different texture, but it always tastes the same. So what I do after boiling it, after let it comes to a boil, what you want to happen is you want it to kind of thicken up. So I use a spoon to put the icing on the spoon. I dip it out and I kind of sway it from side to side to see if it's very runny or if it's thickening up. Another way you can tell if it's done or not is to get a cold cup of water and drop a drop of the icing into the cold water, and if it forms like a hard ball, then it is done. If it's runny, it's not done. So after the icing is complete, you're basically almost finished with the preparation of the cake. Once your cakes have cooled from the 3 pans, I always sprinkle a little flour over the top of the cake so when I flip it out, it does not stick to my hand, because I've done that before and the cakes have fell apart and it was not very good. So I put the flour on the pan or over the top of the cake, then I flip them out separately. On each layer you put onto your plate, you stick holes in your cake with a toothpick so you can ensure that your icing fills the cake and it makes it very moist. So after putting your first layer of cake down and poking holes through your cake with a toothpick, then you put your first layer of icing. Then, once your first layer is done, you put your second cake and then poke holes in it, and then put your second layer of icing, then so on and so on until the third is complete. But the third one, you do not put holes in it with a toothpick. It takes a while for your icing to harden, so I always make, if the cake is going somewhere, I always make it the night before, so it will be very moist and the icing will look very hard, and it will ensure that the cake is the most delicious thing you have ever had. My family, once I mastered it, my family always gets me to make them for every family event or church function that we have, and my family absolutely adores it, and they are so thankful that I have finally learned how to make the cake. After following all of these steps, now you can enjoy the most sensational strawberry cake you have ever tasted that my family adores.